Last story I wanted to do tonight. Let's talk about the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, the USCCB. It's a very conservative group of Catholic leaders in the United States, and they meet every now and then to discuss whatever it is they discuss, their sex lives, things like that, I assume. But they said they met last week to spend time in prayer and fraternal dialogue. And also, they made sure to carve out some time to figure out how they can make the lives of transgender people even worse. And specifically, they codified a plan to forbid Catholic hospitals from providing gender affirming care. And let me tell you where this is coming from. Um, you may have heard Catholic hospitals are like slowly taking over the country, which is very true. For a lot of people, the only hospital near them is a Catholic hospital. Sometimes Medicare or Medicaid is only going to cover procedures for in-network providers, and sometimes those providers are Catholic hospitals. And the thing about it is there are rules about what Catholic hospitals will do and what they won't do. They won't help you with an abortion. They will not do anything about surrogacy. They won't do in vitro fertilization. They will not give men a vasectomy, things like that, because it goes against Catholic doctrine. Well, the last time they updated their rules was in 2018. And I'll show you what I mean by this a little later. Last time they updated their rule book was in 2018. And they didn't say anything about trans people. And this leads, especially in recent years, to a lot of questions about, well, what are Catholic hospitals allowed to provide to trans patients who may want to transition? And this is where there have been some issues because doctors want to help them, but the hospitals say, we don't think you're allowed to do that because Catholic. And so one of the things the Catholic Church did, or at least the USCCB did, is a couple of years ago, look at the date line here, March of 2023, they issued some guidance to Catholic hospitals. And specifically, they said a couple things here that are disturbing. Look over here. As an example of immediate concern, the committee cites the interventions advocated by many in society as treatments for what is termed gender dysphoria or gender incongruence. These might involve surgical or chemical techniques, yada, yada. As such interventions do not respect the fundamental order of the human person as an intrinsic unity of body and soul with a body that is sexually differentiated, the committee says that Catholic healthcare services must not provide them. So if you want gender affirming care, it violates human dignity that God gave you, so you're not allowed to do it. It's basically what they said. And then ironically, the very next paragraph here says, you should always try to mitigate the suffering of those who struggle with gender incongruence, but also, sorry if they're suffering because you're not letting them transition, let them suffer. That's basically the guidance they offered in 2023, thinking, I know the rule book doesn't say anything about this, so here's some guidance. Don't help people who need your help. That was in 2023. Now, that wasn't the only thing. In 2024, the Vatican decided to chime in on this matter, and this is when Pope Francis was still around. He signed off on a document. Let me show it to you on the Vatican's website here. It's called Dignitas Infinita, infinite dignity, which is a very ironic phrase for what I'm about to show you. And among the many things they said in this document, let me see if I could find one thing specifically that I was looking for. Here we go. There is a whole section in this document called Some Grave Violations of Human Dignity. And what do they talk about in here? Oh, the poverty. Yes, that is an affront to human dignity. We should abolish poverty or do what we can to eradicate poverty. I like that. War is definitely bad. Right there with you, Pope. The travail of migrants. Yes, we treat refugees like crap, and that's horrible. I agree. Human trafficking, yes, also bad. Sexual abuse, good for the church, also bad. Violence against women is bad. I'm liking this. Abortion, Really? We're sticking this one on the same list? That doesn't belong there. Surrogacy. That's apparently very bad, allowing people to have babies. Euthanasia and assisted death. They don't like that. The marginaliz. Oh, now we're back to good stuff. Yeah, we don't want to marginalize people with disabilities. Of course we don't. And then here we go. Sections 55 through 60 are all sections 55 to 59. Oh, and 60. It's all about it's all about gender theory and sexual differentiation. So basically, the document never uses the word trans, but what it says is that anyone who subscribes to gender theory, so trans people and their allies, are making a personal self-determination. They are choosing to be trans, which is not how it works. That document also says sexual difference is, I got to show you this because it made me laugh. Look at number 58 here. I'll show this. Look at number 58. The foundational, another prominent aspect of gender theory is that it intends to deny the greatest possible difference that exists between living beings. No, it doesn't. Like, whether you have a certain type of genitalia is not the biggest difference between you and other living things. Do you know how many living things there are? A blue whale and an amoeba are both living. They are very different. It has nothing to do with the size of their dick. What are they talking about? So basically, this document released by the Vatican, not only is it lying about what trans people are going through, it denies any kind of gender spectrum. It said that gender-affirming operations threaten someone's unique dignity, which is not only not true, it's completely backwards. By their logic, if you're doing something that violates God's will for you, you shouldn't be getting an appendectomy. You shouldn't be getting LASIK. Don't take Ozempic, right? Like, all of these things are going against the body that God gave you. So why are you touching it? So that document was everything you have come to expect from a group of old men who have never had sex, at least legally speaking, that we know about. Much less understand the nuance of sex and gender, but they pretend to be experts. And so the Vatican signed off on this. And the question again is, well, what are Catholic hospitals supposed to do about any of this, right? And so that document was interesting that the Vatican put out because the Catholic hospital rulebook did not say any of these things. So let me jump to this. This is what the USCCB, the Council of Catholic Bishops, put out a couple of weeks ago. The last time they updated this book was 2018. They just updated it again. This is the 7th edition, and it's only 35 pages. And it's the rule book for what you can and cannot do in a Catholic hospital. And I'm going to scroll down. Where am I going to go to? Let's see where I want to go. I won't bore you with the scrolling. There we go. There is a section called, here we go, the professional-patient relationship. And underneath here, the directives. These are the rules. Let's jump to 28 and 29. Those are the brand new ones. So let's see here. Since creation is prior to us and must be received as a gift, we have a duty to protect our humanity. That sounds great, which means accepting it and respecting it as it was created in order to respect the nature of the human person as a unity of body and soul. Catholic healthcare services must not provide or permit medical interventions, whether surgical, hormonal, or genetic, that aim not to restore, but rather to alter the fundamental order of the human body in its former function. This includes genetic engineering, that's not medical, interventions that aim to transform sexual characteristics of a human body into those of the opposite sex, or to nullify sexual characteristics of a human body. That is a long way of saying no gender-affirming care. You're not allowed to do it at all for any reason. And then 29 is also new. Catholic healthcare services and providers must employ all appropriate resources to mitigate the suffering of those who experience gender incongruence or gender dysphoria, and to provide for the full range of their healthcare needs, employing only those that means that respect the fundamental order of the human body. So you can do anything in your power to ease the suffering of trans people, except anything that they actually want. That's the new rules they have sent to Catholic hospitals everywhere. It's just awful. And when it's not news, I mean, people knew this was going to happen, but when they issued the guidance in 2023 that predicted that this was going to happen, there were Catholic news outlets that talked to scholars and theologians. Look at this. This is from 2023. Scholars like this person from Loyola University, Chicago, who is a theologian who studies and has written about bioethics, criticized the document for reflecting a striking inability to conduct a basic moral analysis. This person told the National Catholic Review that the doctrinal note displayed next to zero knowledge of, experience with, or expertise in transgender persons and the complexities of Catholic healthcare, even less compassion or Christian virtue. Holy crap. That's what they were saying 2 years ago when these bishops were putting out their bigoted statements. And here is a theologian at a Catholic school saying these people are insane. And what did they do since they said that? Nothing. There's one more thing I wanted to show you from that same article. Look at this. The Bishops' Conference said the doctrinal note was developed in consultation with numerous parties, including medical ethicists, physicians, psychologists, and moral theologians. But several bioethicists who criticized the document told the National Catholic Review that it did not reflect the evolving science on gender dysphoria, nor the insights and lived experiences of transgender people. So the bishops are like, we talked to so many experts before we put this in writing, and all the actual experts are like, no, you didn't. You didn't talk to us. You didn't talk to trans people. We actually know what we're doing. But that's the thing. They cherry picked who they talked to, and then they said, don't worry, they agree with us on this. So that is disturbing. I want to show you one other thing, which is after they passed the 7th edition of the rule book, like, there are transgender Catholics who have spoken out. And I know maybe you have the thought I have, which is why are there transgender Catholics? Why are you still part of the church? The church does not want you in it. They don't even think you should exist. They say you don't exist. They think you're lying. But here's what trans Catholic people said. Catholic teaching upholds the invaluable dignity of every human life, and for many trans people, gender-affirming care is what makes this life livable, said Michael Sennett, a trans man who is active in his Massachusetts parish. And there's a ministry for trans people in the Catholic Church, New Ways Ministry, and their executive director, Francis DiBernardo, said that for many transgender Catholics he knows, the transition process was not just a biological necessity, but a spiritual imperative. That if they were not going to be living as authentic people in the way that they believe God made them, then transition becomes a necessary thing. That's what trans Catholics are saying. But again, they were not consulted about these rules. And again, I could say whatever I want about, like, why are they in the church at all? But who cares what I think? It's not about me. But the Catholic Church doesn't care about them. They're not taking their wisdom into account here. So many trans people will tell you that transitioning is vital to living their authentic lives. And to be denied that opportunity, at least at Catholic hospitals, means that the Catholic Church would rather have them live a lie and be miserable in the process than give them the kind of care that would allow many of them to feel whole. And all of this is happening at the same time that Republican lawmakers are doing everything in their power to make trans health care impossible to access. Like, they don't want Medicare or Medicaid covering it. They're passing the big, beautiful bill that shuts down a whole bunch of local hospitals that are secular hospitals. So it's harder and harder to get access to any kind of care. And the reason all this matters is because the USCCB with very few exceptions, does not allow Catholic hospitals to perform procedures that violate Catholic doctrine. And if the hospitals violate the rule because they care about the patients more than the dogma, they could lose their affiliation with the church, which theoretically means they could lose their funding. It means the beginning of the end for a lot of those places. And even if those Catholic hospitals employ doctors and nurses who are good people who want to help their patients, those doctors and nurses are hamstrung and they cannot do what they know they need to do for those patients because of the stupid rule book that is not written by medical professionals. Like the Hippocratic Oath says do no harm, but the Catholic hospitals are like, don't worry about that. Just listen to whatever the Catholic Church wants. Put a big asterisk by do no harm, and you're allowed to do some harm if the Catholic doctrine demands it. It's so disturbing. And you should know just some basic stats here. Catholic hospitals get roughly 48 billion with the B dollars per year in taxpayer dollars from the government through Medicaid and Medicare reimbursements. And Catholic hospitals are taking over the country. From a report from a couple years ago, 4 of the nation's 10 largest health systems are Catholic hospitals. The 10 largest Catholic health systems control 394 short-term acute care hospitals. And more than 30% of births in the US now happen in a Catholic hospital. So this is a growing problem because the hospitals taking over our country are now restricted as to what help they can actually provide. I will tell you, I wanted to leave on a brighter note somehow, which is there was an article that just came out from the 19th, which focuses on gender and politics and policy. And this is what they said, because Catholic hospitals are also anti-abortion. But this is what they said. That does not always mean patients at Catholic hospitals cannot get help. Some doctors find workarounds for their patients, and it's been an open secret in Catholic hospitals for some time. So one person has researched the church's healthcare policies as they relate to reproductive healthcare and gender-affirming care. So look at what she said. People who want hormonal contraception, the clinicians are advised you can't do it for the purpose of contraception. You can't do a medical abortion. But if the patient has really painful periods or really bad acne, when you're writing down your list of like why you're prescribing something, say it's the acne. Then you can give her the medicine she needs to get a medical abortion. So doctors know about that. And that does happen. Now, how does that apply to trans care? Maybe the loopholes for doctors at these institutions is, hey, trans person, I'm going to refer you to a secular clinic, or I'm going to give you the hormones you need, but it's for a totally different reason. And we'll both just wink, wink. It's for that other, I can't wink. It's for that other reason. They could do that. But again, all of this, I mean, think about what we're talking about here. These doctors are saying, I want to help this patient, but the hospital won't let me help this patient. So I have to do a runaround around the hospital to get this patient the care they need. We shouldn't be in that position in the first place. Just give patients what they need if the doctors approve and say, yeah, this is what you need. It's not like a kid can walk into a hospital and say, I want hormones. I want to be a different gender. That's not how it works unless all you watch is Fox News. Like in real life, the doctors are in on it. They know what's going on. They understand what is happening here. And if their expertise tells them, yes, you do need this, why is the hospital getting in the way of that? I keep thinking of like evangelical pharmacists who are like, oh, you have a prescription for birth control? I don't like birth control, so I'm not going to dispense this. Who are you to get in the way of a woman and her doctor? Like, it's not your business. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what you do at home. Like, just fill the prescription. So anyway, I guess the takeaway from this is a signal that there is no moderating faith-based extremism, because that's what this is. It doesn't matter if the Pope's tone is gentle, which it is. Doesn't matter if the Vatican's document that I showed you has a lot of sensible statements about war is bad and poverty is bad. That's all nice, but they're just giving you some good stuff so that when they hit you with the stuff they actually care about, maybe you won't notice, right? The Catholic Church says it's never going to change on some of the most basic, common sense, moral issues of our time, and they're on the wrong side of all of these. Maybe with the exception of like the death penalty. They're on the wrong side of all of these. Um, it is telling to me they never put out a list of which medical professionals and theologians they consult before putting out these rules. But again, unless more practicing Catholics openly reject the church and walk out of the pews and tell the church, this is why I'm leaving, none of this shit's ever going to change. All right, I'm going to stop here. I'll take any last questions. Otherwise, that's all I had for today. Yeah, I mean, they can try to take my vasectomy away, but it's going to be a bit difficult. Actually, I do wonder about that. They won't perform a vasectomy, but I do wonder, because I don't know, will Catholic hospitals do a reverse vasectomy? Because now you're going back to what God wanted, and I have to think they would be fine with that. Wouldn't it be great if doctors got to say what their patients need instead of religions and insurance companies? It's almost like universal healthcare is what we need, and get the middlemen out of the way. We're the only country that doesn't seem to know how to do this. So the greatest difference between the Pope and an amoeba is the size of their dicks. Yes, that is correct.